Hello, my beautiful friends. So I got my new machine and I have my upgraded software. So we can talk for more than 15 minutes, but I won't. But it just blurs my background and I couldn't decide if that looked worse than this. So I was like, well, let me find a background that looks nice. Like I'd want to be there. So there we go. But don't you love the halo that happens when I move my head? Isn't that fantastic? I don't know. I'll figure that out. But I wanted to get this message out before I go to work. So, um, in my effort to find good sources for you and conversations that I have about this kind of stuff all the time, one of the big topics is like, over the course of human history, different traditions can't be friends, right? You can have a conversation with people, but they're judging you, or maybe you're judging them, and that certainly happens within Christianity, and it definitely happens, between religions. And one of the groups that's been harmed the most, at least in my cultural history, has been the witches, right? And so I'm Scottish, and tie back to the Scottish witches, that the women and men who were accused of witchcraft, mostly women, mostly older women, in Scotland, and so I feel very passionately about kind of stopping that nonsense, right? Stopping that interfaith judgment that we experience. Sometimes we do, sometimes we participate in it. And I will say that I don't have a lot of fans in the Christianity realm, because I don't judge other religions or practices, but I get judged from those practices as well, and no Christian can be good, and all Christians are evil. So I kind of feel the heat from both sides, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary to have that heat, because really we're all here for light and love. And whatever you call it, whatever, denomination you are, if you're Christian, or whatever world religion you are, and whatever subgroup of that you are, we're all here for love and light. All of them teach love and light. Even the ones that you don't expect to do, right? So really what our job is, I think, is to understand where people come from, and to have really good resources for that. So one of the groups, I always think that spirit lines up people that should be together. And I've talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about it again. So, long story short, I met this wonderful woman named Margaret. And we met through this sort of difficult thing that kind of happened, where we were both like, are you seeing this? Are you seeing this? And we kind of became buddies, because we both saw some shenanigans, not the good kind. And then we talked about it, and she leads this group called Interfaith Alignment. And with my computer being down, I've missed quite a few things that they've done recently, but they offer really great programming. It's free. There are memberships that you can to support the work, to keep the lights on and things like that, if you're able. But if you're not able, the resources are on YouTube. I'm going to link the channel below. And you learn about all different practices and all different spiritualities, and it really is interesting, because I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, my mom wasn't my parents were very, 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 very religious, and we weren't allowed to I wasn't allowed to even be in a youth group that was at a UCC church, because they were too liberal. I always say that I was raised by the Amish Anglicans. But it's interesting, I wasn't allowed to learn about witchcraft or paganism or anything like that, but she never said things about those things, because I think she did believe in a little bit of a little bit of the other side, or a little bit of magic, or something. I think she believed something, so she never poo-pooed it in the same way she poo-pooed the UCC church, which my father's brother-in-law was a UCC minister. But so it was interesting. So, but when you're a kid and you're raised in a family, of whatever the belief system is, like, you're expected to adopt that belief. And then when you start asking questions, one of my, like, the person I consider my Anam Cara, she was raised Mormon. And, at one point in her life, she was like, what? What is this? And she started asking questions, and apparently you're not allowed to ask questions when you're Mormon. So, so I think a lot of us have experiences where, we've either had to go undercover. I certainly didn't come out with my spirituality beliefs, in any public way for many years. And I never, I kind of bought hook, line, and sinker everything that was taught to me as a child. But now we have resources and we have YouTube and we have connections and we have ways to connect to one another and we have ways to understand. I think the biggest thing you learn as an adult is that you don't get cooties from learning from somebody else. You don't you can't catch it. You're not going to catch witchcraft. You're not going to catch paganism. One of my former employees, his husband is a Satan worshiper. And that does kind of like curl me up, like I get a little bristled, but I'm not going to become one just because I hear about their experience, right? I can learn from them and learn what it is, that's about. We don't socialize outside of work really, so I don't really have the opportunity, but I'm not going to catch it learning about it. And I can't spread light and love if I block things out of my life because they make me uncomfortable. So we have to let that window be open, to allow spirit to do spirit work. And when we close the window because of judgment, or we close the window because of prejudice, or we close the window because of preconceived ideas, we close a window and then things can't go through. So Alignment has something coming up that I think is really amazing. They have, and I'll put the Facebook link below as well, and it's about praying with children, and our children, desperately, everybody right now desperately needs prayers. I mean, that's true for all eternity, right? Every age needs prayers for different reasons. But really helping our children and helping ourselves with helping our children navigate some of these really difficult times, I think really is helpful. And so that's coming up, and I believe it's this weekend, or I think it's this weekend. I unfortunately will be away, but I definitely will watch the recording. They did this amazing thing over the holidays. They had an advent calendar, and it was a different like tradition each day of the calendar. That is still up on their website. Definitely worth it. Short little clips, and again, you don't get cooties from anybody listening to their story. You get a valuable perspective, and you learn how their tradition brings light and love into the world. And I feel like, I love to write grants in my professional life. I love to write grants and work with different, MIT and NASA and all the different things that I've done. I like to do that spiritually too. How can we connect together? Because I don't have to be your thing to love you as a human. I don't have to be your thing to see that you're trying to bring light and love into the world, right? And Christians over time have done horrible things in the name of Christianity. So we have a chance to bring back the cross in a good way, and say not all Christians are that way. There are some of us out here that really just care about the work of Christ and bringing light and love into the world and helping those who need the most help with people who are poor, or people who are sick, or people who are um, misplaced, or whatever. So that's the message today. And really, I wanted to get out a good resource, and this event is coming up. Ooh, so I want to make sure that I get this out to you. I am wishing you all the very best in light and love. I will be away this weekend for the holiday, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye bye.